Hi. A lot of time we look at leaders giving speeches. For example, the recent one was a tariff announcement by President Trump, but then it was put on hold or rolled back. The key item is roll back. Similarly, in systems, especially on AWS ECS, this video is all about ECS. There is a new feature which will help you automate the rollbacks. So, in the absence of this feature, how was it done manually? The deployment circuit breaker of AWS was used. So, do you think this service exists? This is very important to know for certification. ECS has a deployment circuit breaker feature which automatically detects and handles failures during deployment process of an ECS service. So this is a very important feature because based on the detection, you can take different sort of actions. What sort of actions? How it works, the circuit breaker, it has a feature for monitoring task launches and then it checks for the threshold values. If the threshold gets breached, uh, it raises an alert and then there is a failure detection feature and after that there is a action. Okay, you have detected certain things. Now you have to act. What are you going to do about it? So when the circuit breaker trips, just like there is a tripper in your house, if there is a short circuit, it trips. Similarly here, the circuit breaker trips, the deployment is marked as failed, and ECS stops launching the new task on that for that deployment. Okay, so what we are discussing is ECS deployment and rollback. So we had to do a lot of manual stuff for this. If the deployment went sideways, we had to manually initiate new deployment. Why? Because we have to roll back whatever went in and roll it back to the previous state. See, for example, you have a BI report, you put it on production and it has errors. When you run, it has errors. So the client says, boss, please bring it to the state of previous report. The previous version of the report was just fine. At least I was able to run it. So you have to roll it back. That activity is called rollback. So in the absence of automation, you had to realize the current deployment was failing. First, that is the first step. You have to realize that there is a mistake happening. Even with human beings, you have to realize that you were wrong at that point. Once you have done that, you identify a new good service definition. You monitor then you actually manually trigger a new deployment with the previous configuration. Remember, your new report has errors, but previous report has no errors. So this portion tells I will take the old version and put it, and you monitor that version of the deployment to ensure it succeeds. The manual process is time consuming. There is a window of instability in your application when this rollback happens. So instability is something which, as an architect, you should never bring any instability in your applications. So in the month of May 2025, ECS for AWS has launched this new feature. You read this carefully. There are CloudWatch alarms set up. The deployment circuit breaker automatically detects launch failures. And CloudWatch alarms allow you to detect these issues like degradation in infrastructure, CPU utilization. Suppose the deployment was done for a website, but the website is slow. There is a response time issue. So you should be able to automatically track that and you use the stop deployment API action. This is a very important action from ECS. It is important to understand from a certification standpoint. Okay, now we understood there was something we were doing manually with respect to ECS rollback. Now we have a way to automate that process. Since May 2025, we have a way to automate that process. How does it apply to our industry? Suppose there is a deployment with lots of errors. Okay, then it is called a buggy deployment. It has lots of bugs. So if this automation is not available at your disposal, you will have to, you know, uh, do a lot of stuff manually. So in this case, it says if there is a recommendation service of a website. It says this is a real use case where it says, okay, people who bought this also bought these other products. Now this is getting impacted. It becomes slow and user experience is not good because user says, hey, this is so slow. So user says, I will use other applications, and you lose that sale because it goes to some other competitor. Okay, because this slowness was not automatically detected by existing ECS configuration. Neither CloudWatch monitoring could detect it. So now this new stop deployment API, what this gives e-commerce company an edge is it will automatically roll back to a stable version. So CloudWatch alarm is set up to specifically monitor response latency of the website. The moment it feels okay, this latency is going below the threshold value, like it is crossing the threshold values, it will trigger that this is a problematic deployment, and it will say, boss, I want to roll it back to previous one because it looks customers are facing slowness. So that way, if there is automation built in, customers will feel good about the application because that slowness dies away very fast. Why? In the background, the old version replaces the new version. That's why it dies out very fast. And customers are happy and satisfied. So this is how you use automation to not work manually like humans do. This is a new feature of ECS launched in May 2025. We will post many more such informative contents which is important for certification. This content is also important for cloud certifications. So stay tuned. We will post many more such informative content.